Hi everyone. I thought it would be easier to make a little video showing the online homework system rather than trying to do this in class. Though likely you found this video because I did a quick demonstration of this in class. So that should hopefully clear up any concerns or issues you might have had regarding how we will do the homework in Physics 90 this semester. So the homework, which again will be roughly one problem set a week, about 10-ish problems or so, you will do almost entirely through the homework website, ExpertTA. This site has improved a lot over the last couple of years. I've used it for other classes, but they just launched a new set of astronomy materials, and also allow me the opportunity to create my own problems in ExpertTA. So you will also see problems that say relate to you looking at the syllabus and answering a question about the syllabus, and that'll be graded as part of one of your problem sets. So the only unfortunate thing is that it is not free. I think it's like $32 for the semester, which I hope is not too much of an issue, and also is another incentive of why I chose one of the cheaper textbooks for this class. So to access our classes ExpertTA, you will need to make an account on ExpertTA. So if you head over to the website, theexpertta.com, it will also be linked at the top of our Moodle page. Let's see, you will have to log in, in which case, let's see, I believe you have to sign up somewhere. This seems like we already have an account, so not that. Oh, how to register. Okay, so you can either click how to register here, which will take you through a process of how to register as a student. What I think will be easier though, I believe down here in the course packet information, there is a link to ExpertTA info that should create or open up another PDF. And it provides you at the very top a link that will take you directly to a page that will allow you to register for my class on ExpertTA. Let's just see what it looks like. All right, so welcome, registration info. You're registering as a student for my class. Make sure this is correct. Physics 90, Fall 2021, Intro to Astro by me. Use your SMC email, confirm it. It will then take you to a page where I think it's some payment information you'll have to submit, which you can do it either through credit card on your own. If you want to purchase an access code through the bookstore should have some of these codes as well for you if you want to purchase this through the bookstore. All right, I did not mean to leave that. So now let's log into ExpertTA and see what we're going to see once we log in. So you'll get an account, you'll register. It will take you to an interface that probably looks something-ish like this. It might look a little different for you because you're not an instructor, but it should have all the same similar features. Again, this class should be displayed as the class you're working on. And then this panel here in the middle will be where all your assignments are located. As the assignments become available and I publish them, you might not actually see this column. I can control when you actually can see them on your end. But for each of the assignments that are available, there will be a listed start date of when you can start taking the assignment, and a due date of when it is due, and then the end date is the last final possible opportunity you can submit work, maybe for partial credit or whatnot. Remember, as we talked about in class, there is a late penalty where if you do submit something late, it's immediately 30% off and then an additional 20% off for every 24 hours after the due date. So do submit work late. One, it helps you still practice the material that could appear on exams, and you can still get some credit. And since I drop the lowest 2 or so scores when determining final grades, dropping 2 zeros and one that's only 20 and keeping the one that's 20%, say, is still a lot better than if I drop 2 zeros, but then I have to keep a third zero because you didn't do 3 of the homework assignments or something. So even some partial credit can be helpful towards your final grade. Now, when you have an assignment to take, and we'll use the Intro to ExpertTA one as an example now, you should also be able to see that one. This is not graded at all. You can try it out if you want to just practice with the interface before you jump into the real homework assignments. which right now you can see I only have homework 1 available. So to take the assignment, if it is the same for you as it is for me, I can right-click on the assignment. I have things that you will not see, like create and edit assignments, but you should have an option to take the assignment. You can start and end assignments as often as you want. You do not have to do it in one sitting. I don't encourage you to do it all in one sitting. You could solve a problem, go do something else, come back later that day, come back another day. You can leave and enter the homework sets as many times as you want. Every time you go back into the homework set, however, you will have to reaffirm that you are going to do this honorably by the St. Mary's Honor Code, and that you will not post anything online because ExpertTA's materials are copyrighted. Assuming you all agree, you can click agree, and it will take you to this interface, which will be where all the problems are presented. In this example one, I gave 3 problems that are available, 1 of them from ExpertTA and 2 that I dreamt up myself. So this first problem, and you can see there are some certain things like, here's some course information about this assignment. If you click class management, like you're taken out of the assignment, again, that's okay. You can just right click, take assignment, yes, honor code, and you're right back there. All your work is automatically saved. Or rather, once you submit work, that work is automatically saved for you. So some things to point out. This left-hand panel here kind of gives you an overview of where you are in terms of the entire assignment. This detailed view is helpful here. So if I click that, it shows that this particular quote-unquote homework assignment, this example, has 3 problems, and some of them have multiple parts. So problem 1 has 3 parts, problem 2 has 2 parts, problem 3 has 1 part. They are all gray, which means that I currently have not made an attempt at all to solve any of these parts. As you complete the problems, they will change colors to either greens or reds. Once you get the problem correct, you cannot go back and edit. I don't know why you would want to, but you cannot go back and edit a correct answer. And for some of these problems, there might be a limited number of times you can try to solve the problem. So as long as before the due date, all of these are colored, green or dark red, you're good to go. Because everything it'll be counted as you've done this on time, and there'll be no late penalties. You can also use this to jump around to different parts. You don't have to do things in order. If you want to start with problem 3, you can just click problem 3 part A, and it takes you to problem 3. You can also jump around here. And for problems that have multiple parts, if you scroll, you can see this is showing part A, and part B is down here. And if you want, you can click and go right to part B, or jump back to part A. So there's a lot of different avenues you can use to kind of navigate around the system. This first question is one from ExpertTA that kind of walks you through some of the things I just talked about and kind of what these sorts of problems might look like. For example, this one, I think it shows you kind of things to point out this left-handed side. Also, we'll point you to this region here, which will tell you about how you're doing on this particular problem. One thing I like about ExpertTA is that it's not just correct or wrong. If you make a mistake, it lets you know that you've made a mistake and allows you the opportunity to revise your answer so that you could earn some partial credit rather than just getting no credit because you didn't get that feedback in time before you had to submit it for evaluation. So what this is saying so far is that so far we have received no deductions on this problem. So we have the potential to get 100% on this particular problem. In terms of submissions, I can submit an answer 5 more times, knowing that if I get it wrong, I will lose 20% of the possible points for every incorrect answer I submit. For multiple choice, this is automatically determined based on the number of options you have. For problems where you have to calculate a number, I set that I can fix these numbers so that I can say, like for a numerical answer, you can try up to 20 times, but every time you make a mistake, you lose a few percent. Multiple choice, obviously I can't give you 20 attempts when there are only 6 possible answers. The math doesn't quite work out that way, so these numbers are automatically fixed for multiple choice questions. So this particular problem actually does not have a prompt. It says just choose a random answer. So the idea is, if we imagine this, you can imagine that this could be a problem where maybe the prompt, actually I know what they want the answer to be. The prompt could be, which one of these objects has an infinite number of sides? In that case, the answer is a circle, but maybe you didn't know that. Maybe you're unsure, maybe you're so stumped you don't even know where to begin. There are usually, more often than not, hints available for particular questions. Now, hints will give you some clues as to might help you solve the particular problem at hand. For the problems I write myself, I might even provide as hints clues as to where in the lecture notes you could look to help you solve that particular problem. Hints, however, do come with a slight cost. Hints are okay, but hints will have a slight deduction. So in this case, it says that there are 2 hints remaining, but each time you take a hint, 5% of the potential points will be taken away. So hints do come at a little bit of a cost. So let's see. I don't think their examples, unfortunately, aren't very good. So like if I click a hint, yeah, here it just says the hints are helpful for reinforcing the concepts. Like, that's a terrible hint. But, in a real problem, this hint would have been something a little bit more meaningful to give you a hint towards why they want you to pick the correct answer. And notice here now there's a 5% deduction. The potential is now reduced down to 95%. So maybe I think it's this guy. I submit. And once I think that's the right answer, again, you do have to submit. But it says, unfortunately, it's incorrect. Sometimes, not always, sometimes there will be specific feedback available. ExpertTA can be programmed to be smart, so if you pick particular questions or particular answers, the people who wrote the questions might have a clue as to why you might have thought that was the right answer, right? There might be a misconception, or there might be something that ExpertTA could provide some additional feedback on. I think feedback should be encouraged, so I will always make feedback have no deduction. So if you submit an answer, turns out it's incorrect, and there's feedback available, you should use that feedback to improve. I think feedback should be free. So let's see, their feedback is probably terrible. The answer you've marked is not correct. Okay, so that's terrible feedback. Again, the questions I write will have actual meaningful feedback. Feedback is not always available, but when it is, I encourage you to use it. Let's just quickly look. Okay, so some things that have appeared, you can see kind of your submission history. So don't pick this guy again if you're gonna change your answer. Don't pick the same answer again because that was not correct. If we go back up here to the assignment status, notice that now part A is listed as light red, meaning that there are attempts remaining. So I can go back. I should try to go back and try to answer it again. And that is the only part of this assignment I've answered so far. So I believe the answer is supposed to be the circle, so I can submit. It says, correct. You can continue to the next part and it takes you automatically to part B, or you could close it and navigate around on your own. So let's just go continue. And now notice this part A has turned to green. So that problem is done. Part B gives you an example. Actually, I have my own example of this. So there might be cases where you have to calculate a number. And then you have to type in a number. So you have to type in 17 point whatever as your actual answer. For this class, I'm not going to be worried too much about sig figs, if you remember that from like a high school chemistry class or stuff like that. Just include 1 or 2 decimal spots in all of your answers, and ExpertTA will count that as correct. ExpertTA allows a little bit of tolerance, so it allows for a little bit of rounding and whatnot. So as long as you keep 1 or 2 decimal spots, you'll be fine. For example, I think this shows that the correct answer is supposed to be 15.25. You could also type in 15.3, and it will also take that as correct. For this class, the mathematics that you have to type in will always just be simple numbers. So while I think by default all these trig functions will appear, we will never use them. So you don't have to worry about that. Maybe a square root or something like that, but in terms of numbers, you should just be able to type in the answer that it's supposed to be. Oops. Submit. Correct. Lovely. Sometimes, like there are different kinds of questions. Like in this case, it says from the options below, select all the choices that are planets and then click submit. So you can click multiple ones that appear. The moon is not a planet, the rest are. There is a hint, and then I'm going to submit. If you want, I don't know why you don't necessarily need to ever do this. You could just not answer the question. But if you just want to say screw it, you could give up. But of course, note that if you give up, you're obviously going to get 0 points. The deductions will go to 100%. Right, so submit, done, continue. In that case, we had completed the problem. Now, see problem 1 says complete. All of those are green, and it took us to problem 2. Again, as review, maybe I don't want to do problem 2 now. Maybe I'll go problem 3 instead. So now we can go to problem 3. Maybe now I'll work on problem 3. In this case, here's one I kind of dreamt up. You send a radio signal, and this shows some other examples of features that ExpertTA has. You send a radio signal to a distant planet that is 12.5 light years away. If the alien civilization responds immediately, then you should expect to receive a reply some years later, and you have to figure out that number and type in, what that number is. There are some hints. There might be some feedback depending on what the answer is. You might ask, why is the number a different color? It's nice that it's a different color because it brings your attention to that number. This also demonstrates that this is an example of a randomized problem. So every student is going to have a different number for this problem. I can create variables that have some randomization. So while everyone will have this problem, the numbers you use and then have to use to calculate an answer will be different from student for student. So you can't just copy exactly what your friend did. Rather, I would encourage you to, if you want to work together, I always encourage people to work together, work through how you approach solving the problem, and then this gives you an opportunity to apply that to each of your problems individually. So let's see, I think the feedback here, if I say, okay, if it's 12.5 light years away, it's going to take 12 years. If I do submit, incorrect, but there is feedback. So let's see what the feedback says. The answer you provided was not correct. We've recognized, this was an automated one. Appears to be off by a factor of 1/2. Maybe it was a hint that I did it as. I don't know, whatever. But again, this is kind of just re-emphasizing that this allows you the opportunity to go back. And if you say, okay, I think it's 25, it is correct. Don't worry so much about why the answer is 25. We'll get to that in class. Again, notice, once you submit, it shows you, again, kind of the history of your submissions, and then what your final grade is for that particular problem. Now let's see this. We can jump to 2. I think there's only one more example. This is an example of another multiple choice question. The speed of light is blah meters per second. This number, when correctly written in scientific notation, is one of these. So this is, again, another one where ExpertTA will be able to give you automatic feedback and be able to tell you whether you're right or wrong. ExpertTA also allows for open-ended questions that will not be graded automatically, but will eventually be graded. So in this case, part B, it says, in a few sentences in your own words, why is the finite speed of light crucial for modern astronomy? So in this case, it allows you some space, up to 3,000 characters, which I think 3,000 characters is like 1 page single space. Please do not give me that much for each one of these problems. For all of these open-ended prompts, I'm looking for a few sentences in your own words. So there should be plenty of space, what I mean, for these essay questions. So you might say, this is fun. And you might think that that's your answer. Warning you of unsafe work, so you have to submit. But with these open-ended questions, again, it just says answer saved successfully. ExpertTA doesn't know if this is correct. I or the graders will have to go in after the problem set is past the due date, and we'll grade it on our own, and we'll assign you a grade for the problem. So for these open-ended questions, it will show you that you've completed that part. But you are also allowed to go back and edit your answer. So it says science is fun. Maybe you want to go back and you say, actually, I wanted to say science is really fun. Again, it says warning you of unsafe work, so you have to just submit again. And now this is what will appear on our end after you have submitted the question. And this grade summary will not have any real meaning until we go in and grade it on our own. So let's see. So let's see what it looks like when we're done. So speed of light in scientific notation is that. So submit, correct. Then now if we look at this, once you are done, either through correct answers or using up all your attempts, right, everything should be green and dark red. In that case, you're done. You don't have to do anything else. You can leave. You can go back, if you want to go back eventually and edit one of the answers, like maybe one of the open-ended answers, you can do that if you want. You do not have to formally submit it beyond this point. Just as long as you don't change any of your answers after the due date, no penalty will be made against you. Eventually the graders will go in, and for the open-ended questions, will manually grade those questions on their own. And then there'll be some sort of announcement made on Moodle that the grades have been translated, and then the graders, one of their responsibilities will be translating the grades from ExpertTA over to Moodle in the Moodle gradebook. So one thing to keep in mind, that will be your responsibility to make sure that that translation is good. You should make sure at the end of the semester that the grades that appear on ExpertTA match the grades that appear on Moodle, because I will use Moodle and whatever is on Moodle when determining final course grades. All right, and then when you're ready to start homework 1, you should be able to right-click, take assignment. You have until, assignments are spaced off a week at a time, so just make sure you complete all the problems before the due date, and you'll be all set. I really like this because, again, I like the idea of feedback being provided to you. It allows you to try things multiple times. And so also, a good thing, a good habit to get into is, for some of the mathematical problems, which again, there won't be tons of them, but there will be some. If you're doing a mathematical problem and you've tried it a couple times on ExpertTA and you keep getting the wrong answer, the good news is that you haven't lost the vast majority of the points. You only lose like 3 or 4% for every wrong attempt. But if you keep getting it wrong and you're not quite sure why, then you have an opportunity to come to office hours, be like, I've been working on problem 3, I keep getting the wrong answers. Can we talk through how I'm solving this problem? I think there's something I'm not understanding. All right, hopefully that was helpful, and then you can log out and whatnot. And I think from the class menu, again, you will see different things, but there should be some sort of grade book, class grades thing where you should be able to see your grades in ExpertTA as well. Most of this other stuff you either will not see or will not be relevant for this class. All right, reach out if there's any questions about this.